All right. So, kind of, I guess, just start out. Tell me about your life, kind of growing up, where you grew up, what your childhood was like.
I had a very boring childhood, very mundane and normal middle class childhood. Uh, Parents that loved me, vacations every summer that most people didn't get to go on. I mean, it was kind of perfect.
Yeah.
I've always suffered from depression, even as a kid. So those perfect things were a little less perfect for me. But I grew up in North Little Rock. My dad was a Pulaski County Sheriff for 25 years. And my mom was a banker. And that's pretty much where my anxiety started when I was 5 years old. My mom got robbed at a bank 4 times as I was growing up. My dad was always leaving, and I never knew if he was going to come back. And anxiety started there, which is what led to drugs a lot later. I actually made it until I was 28 years old before I ever even tried drugs. Not even weed.
Really?
Yeah.
Not smoking, anything like that?
I smoked,
Okay.
but past that, I was on antidepressants and Adderall, so I guess those count as drugs, but I was using them as prescribed. I didn't gradually go into the night. I actually quit my job. Didn't even have any intentions of being a useful person anymore. I quit my job and I went and found someone with drugs. And I got high the first time when I was 28 years old. And from there it spiraled hardcore and fast, but I hadn't tried to maintain any semblance of a useful person. I was tired. I was tired of getting up every day and feeling horrible and being anxious. I had good jobs. I had made decent money. I mean, basically, I spent all my time building a life that I hated, and I jumped off a bridge. I was tired of it and didn't know how to get out, so I blew it up, all of it. I started with smoking for like 2 weeks, and went straight for harder and started shooting up, which is never a good thing because you lose a lot of time. A lot of time. Just, you turn around and it's been 3 months and you've been high and you don't remember 90% of it except for getting high. Or 6 months or a year, and then you wake up in the back of an ambulance because you went into cardiac arrest and your mom found you in the floor. That was hard. But not enough to stop me. A few months later, my dad died, and my usage got really, really bad. To the point that I didn't think I was going to survive. The waking up in the back of an ambulance happened in January of 2016. I remember everything up until the point I hit the floor. All of the feelings, nauseous, dizzy, like I was absolutely slipping away, like probably the scariest thing I've ever felt. It wasn't enough to stop me. It just wasn't. And I didn't even get to that point until 2 years later, in January of 2018, when I finally decided that I was sick of my own shit. I was at Pinnacle Mountain with some friends, and we were going to go to the top. And from somebody who used to be physically fit, I was expecting it to be fairly easy. But after 3 years on intravenous drugs of the illegal variety, I got about halfway up and I thought I was going to die again. I couldn't breathe. My legs wouldn't work. I sat down on a bench and I just started crying. And half of our group left. 2 people stayed with me, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this life. And they asked what I meant, and I couldn't tell them at that point. But that was my oh shit moment. I was done, and I left there that day. I packed all of my stuff, This was on January 14th of 2018. I packed all of my stuff and I got in my car and I started calling anybody in my phone book that was outside of Arkansas. And I got to a friend that I had put on a plane in October to go to Florida for rehab. I drove him to the airport on a plane. When I called him, he was like, "Well, I just got out of the program and I'm at this halfway house, sober living home." And I was like, "Can I come there? Like, would they take me?" And normally the answer is no. You have to go to rehab before you can move into one of those places. But we lied to the owner and told him that I had been clean for 2 weeks when really it was more like 48 hours. And he agreed to let me come there. So first thing that you have to do when you get there is a drug test. So I failed. But he told me if I could pass one in the next 3 days and I followed all of the rules, he would let me stay. So they drug tested me again. I passed. Because it had given it time to get out of my system. I was miserable. I was ready to murder everyone, and that's probably why they don't let you go to a halfway house first. I had to manage it all because I was on thin ice. I pretty much had to keep everything in check, which was probably the second hardest thing I've ever done. It's not bite people's heads off while I'm coming down, or it was intense, but I actually only stayed for 32 days. And at the end of that 32 days, I spent enough time at the beach and going to meetings that I was ready to come home. Didn't know how that was going to work out, but I was ready. Going back a little bit, the first day that I was in Florida, I told the people that I lived with that I was just there to get clean so I could get high again. Drugs didn't work anymore, and I was just there to get clean so I could get high. But somewhere in that time, something stuck. Because I decided that I was going to stay clean. I made that statement a few times actually while I was there. And then somewhere around day 14, something stuck. Day 31, I was ready to get high again. Day 32, when I left, one of the guys that I lived with there looked at me and said, "You're just going home to get high. You'll be back, or you'll be dead." Growing up, I was always scared of drugs, A, because of my dad, but B, because people die.
Right.
I had friends in private school, friends in public school. Surprisingly enough, the private school kids could get the drugs faster. And I never did them, but being around them, like, it was easier for them to get higher drugs. Don't get me wrong, the public school kids were definitely doing it. They were a lot quieter about it.
Right.
They didn't advertise their connections. They weren't proud of the things that they were doing. Some of them were, but I mean, I watched a lot of friends end up in rehab before junior year. I had a few friends that progressed from weed to harder things, but for the most part, what I saw and what I was a part of was people just jumping off the deep end, going in hard. I mean, in high school, one thing that really stood out to me was, I'm not going to say a friend, but an acquaintance that had never done drugs either. One day snorting coke, the next day they're taking hydrocodone, whatever the pill was, but an opiate. And it was to offset. They couldn't fall asleep from the drugs they'd done before, and I watched it spiral hard and fast. And I've seen that a few times over the years, especially. It's not uncommon for someone like me who had been awake for 14 days, calm but awake, to not want to be on that roller coaster anymore. Klonopin by the handful, never really opiates for me because I was scared of them, A, and B, I didn't want to mix. But it's not uncommon for someone to get on that roller coaster and not know how to get off. Because by the time you wake up, you're ready to get high again. You've got energy and, like, you're back to square one. And I would see kids that were way too young to be there. Like, way too young to be there. People don't care. Drug dealers don't care. They're going to sell what they have. They're going to sell it to whoever has money, and they don't care who dies. In the span of 3 years, I quit my decently paying job. I was what people would call successful. Granted, I didn't try and hold on to that success. That success is what led me to where I wanted to be done. But I went from my own apartment, car, job, food, to living in a garage. And that's just because my family took pity on me. Kids do it all the time. They'll throw everything away. Everything away for that next time. And that is terrifying. Especially being on the outside of it now. I mean, nothing mattered.
What were your parents? What was your parents' reaction when they found out you were into drugs? I mean, did they know what you were into at first? Did they catch you, or how did that all transpire?
They didn't. When my mom actually found out, it was actually when I went into cardiac arrest, and I had already lost my apartment and moved back in with her for the time being. I went into cardiac arrest, ended up in the hospital, and when I got out, she found a bunch of paraphernalia in my room. Terrifying paraphernalia. She sent me a picture of it. It was used syringes, bags. I used to put them in a Coke can under the edge of my bed so that no one would find them. She found the Coke can and opened it, and there was 2 or 3. And that's how she found out I was into drugs. She related to my dad because they weren't together. But before anything publicly, before my attitude, because that was the first they knew of it, my dad died. So that just compounded it. I managed to make it through his funeral, and then left his funeral and got out again, and stayed that way for another 2 years. But it was hard on them. I think my mom was expecting me to die for a long time. I mean, finding me in the floor was not the best and I think she was just waiting on it. She never really gave up on me. She did kick me out, but that's because my attitude was terrible. I lashed out hard and a lot. So, I mean, she kicked me out. I ended up living in a garage. And for the next 2 years, it was hard. She was a punching bag for me. My dad was gone. I guess I felt like it didn't matter what I did, she would never turn her back on me.
Yeah.
So I treated her horribly, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that up to her. 3 years is a long time when you're being abused verbally by your child who you love unconditionally. It's a long time. It takes a hard toll on people. And I don't know that I'll ever be able to fix what I did. Because clearly finding me on the floor, she's mentioned more than once, and she cries every time that she thought I was dead. She thought I was gone, and she doesn't know what she would have done. That's hard. And I think that's part of addiction. Now I'm clean and I have to deal with that regret, that remorse. All of the things that drove me to want to destroy my life were still there when I decided to quit. Only there was this whole other pile of them. This whole mountain of problems that I never had before that I now had to fix on top of the old ones. And that sometimes seems insurmountable. Even now, I'm 20 months clean, and sometimes that guilt will sneak back in. And those are dangerous times. I mean, sometimes that guilt will absolutely crawl back in, and it's those times where I'm like, I know how to get rid of it. Just get high. And I have days like that where I have to either go run until I can't move or lift weights until I can't move because the gym has absolutely been that place for me. It's my sanctuary. I can walk in there having a bad day and walk out at least somewhat okay in managing my emotions. But on those bad days when that guilt sneaks in from everything that I put everybody through, I have to work it off. There have been days when I've gone to the gym and I've run a marathon, literally, because I needed to burn off the energy and it takes work. It seems easier for me, I think, for some people when they look at how far I've come, but it's constant work. You say no 1,000 times before work. You say no 500 times to every person that pisses you off. Granted, it's in your head, but you're saying no. You're not going to let that be the thing that pushes you backwards. You say no constantly. You avoid situations that could trigger you, and eventually you learn to manage it. I can go places that I couldn't before, like bars or things like that, without feeling any kind of way. But I've never been a drinker. It's when people start pulling out drugs. I'm still okay. I'm pretty sound right now that like someone pulled out a whole thing of meth in the book or in the coffee shop. Yeah, I'm out. But there are days, and then there are physical reactions too. 20 months later, I was coaching a class of 16 people at the gym that I work at. Nothing that I can identify, and my entire body felt like I was about to get hurt. My jaw clenched up, my muscles, a rush of adrenaline, basically everything I used to feel before I would get high. And I'm in the middle of a room full of people coaching a class, and it's those things you got to learn how to manage. It's those things you have to learn how to never ignore because they build.
Right.
You got to learn how to manage them and work through them. When you start ignoring things like that, it's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. And I think school was a precursor because even before I knew how to do drugs, I knew how to do drugs.
Right.
I learned everything that I knew while I was in school, even though I didn't do it. Friends, I knew how to shoot up before I ever even did it. Almost 15 years before I ever did it, because I think the first time I ever saw anyone shoot up was I was 15.
There's a lot of push. I won't say a lot of push, but we kind of mentioned opioid stuff like that have been in the news a lot. As far as just drug addiction in general, do you think that there's enough help if somebody's on meth or they're on, if they're chasing a high on pot or whatever it is that they're chasing? It could even be alcohol. It could be anything. Do you think there's enough help? Is there enough resources, or do you think that the current system is broken on that?
I absolutely think the system is broken. In 3 years, I was in 3 different rehab facilities that I sought out. Just, they don't care. They'll keep you for 3 days just to dry you out or detox you, and then you're out. You're done. I think maybe there are resources that I couldn't find while I was high. I know there's a few that I've found since that I've referred people to, but as a whole, I think the system is broken. And I think that most people overlook the fact that the system is not what's going to save someone.
Right.
They have to do it. When I looked into it the first time, the only places that I could find that were offering the treatment that I was actually looking for would have cost more than my $35,000 car, and they wanted at least half of that up front.
So what about insurance? Does that cover any of that kind of stuff? Or
nope.
So
insurance will cover detox facilities. I think for some minors, depending on how good their insurance is, insurance would cover up to 30 days or with doctor recommendations, but that paperwork has to be done a specific way.
Right.
If it's wrong, you're stuck with a bill for $30,000 for treatment that you can't afford, or you probably wouldn't have gone. You would have just gotten it anyways.
Yeah.
So the system's definitely broken, and I think education is. I didn't didn't know that you couldn't until the last couple of years that if you called the police when someone was overdosing. I didn't know you couldn't get in trouble for that. I've seen people bail. I've seen people just straight up leave people. I've never been that person because I couldn't, I wouldn't, but I've seen people just bail and leave someone laying there. And
Is there something that you would recommend to parents as far as maybe personality changes or
extreme
attitude
personality
changes?
changes. I mean, even depressed and anxious, I always try and lighten people's moods, or try to. Um, on the extreme opposite of that, no one could talk to me. Didn't matter what they were saying, they got their head bit off. Personality, with any drug that you, personality changes are going to be the first thing. Because let's face it, with kids, the physical may be may take a little longer. Sure. But personality, watch for 3 good days and then 5 bad ones. Watch for patterns like that. Because how long someone is going to dictate how long they're going to be happy.
Right.
Until they have to either detox or find it again. And kids have to come for you for money. Unless they have jobs, and I don't know very many kids that can be functioning addicts too. Extreme cash influxes, missing phones, missing laptops. If things keep disappearing that cost a lot of money, it's probably not disappearing. They're probably selling it or trading it for drugs, or dealers aren't going to give a lot away for free.
Right.
You can work for it, you can buy it. That's it.
What are some maybe misconceptions that you think people have about folks that are addicted to any kind of drug? I mean, is there anything that you can see that there's a stereotype maybe that's not right, or maybe
not everybody is going to show signs. There are people that use every day, go to work, go to church. I mean, that's not every drug addict looks like a drug addict. And some people can manage it. Even with kids. I've seen kids that look really put together showing up at all hours of the night at a drug dealer's house, and I don't know how they managed to stay looking that put together, because I didn't. I mean, even when I would try, it would still come off like, got down to 122 pounds. Weight loss is a big one, even with opioids. I mean, but I think the misconception is that it won't happen to you, that it can't touch your family. It can, it will, it does. I didn't wait 28 years. Like, that wasn't my goal in life I snapped. Mine was a little more aggressive than most people's. Normally they fall into it slowly and don't realize what's happening, but I didn't spend 28 years hoping to be a drug addict. I didn't spend 28 years hoping that my mom would find me dead on the floor. It can and will touch your family in some way. I think part of it is support. Like, you should absolutely support your kids. You should not enable them. There's a very big difference. If my mom hadn't thrown me out and said, "I'm here for you when you're not being like this," I mean, my family never turned their back on me. They may not have done the things that I wanted them to do, but, and I was actually reading the other day, if an addict is happy with you, you're probably enabling them. If they're not, then you're probably trying to save them. And that's a big thing. Like, there is a difference between support and enabling. Offer the help, or offer to take them to get help. Don't give them money. don't do things like that. But I don't even know how young it starts now. I can almost guarantee that most kids by 5th or 6th grade have come in contact with some sort of drug outside of the home that's not Tylenol. I mean, it's aggressive these days, and no one is immune, which is terrifying.
Yeah. So let's shift a little bit now to the bright side of things. So obviously you've recovered. You've made an awesome turnaround. I've been following your stories and stuff like that on social media. I mean, 20 months clean on your own, outside of the way that the system tells you you should do it. Obviously, it's not everybody's success story, but you've made it there, and it sounds like every day is still a struggle, but you're maintaining it, doing awesome. So, what are some positives that you've seen since you've gotten off? I guess that's kind of a stupid question to ask, but I mean, you're now working at a gym.
I do.
For physical training and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about what's going on now in your life now that you're clean.
Since getting clean, actually, my whole life has changed. You find out a lot about yourself when you're in those kind of depths. My attitude has changed. My mentality as an overall has changed. I don't take antidepressants anymore. I don't take anything for the ADHD that I was diagnosed with at 5 years old. I stopped taking anti-anxiety medicine. I actually don't take any medication now, except for maybe Tylenol or ibuprofen. And that has absolutely made a difference in my life. When I decided to get clean, I quit everything that I'd been on for years and years and years, because clearly it wasn't working.
Right.
So working out has increased my mood, helped with my ADHD so that I don't need the medications anymore. I wake up happy, energetic, positive, whereas I didn't think I ever would, going through everything that I went through for so long. I never thought I would have a normal life, and really it's kind of boring now. Like it's boringly normal, which is completely fine with me. I have a group of friends that is really solid. They're my support system, and we travel a lot. We go out of town, we go to concerts, we hang out. They work out at the gym that I work at. So, I mean, that's a big thing, my support system. I'm not quiet about my story at all.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you're not, because there's a lot of people that can benefit from a story like that.
And I hope one day they do. I hope that I figure out how to expand that message. I talk about it at the gym. I talk about my weight loss, my addiction, all of it, because hopefully it does help. And I've had a couple of people that have approached me that have had problems that are similar to mine, and they're either not sure where their support system is here, or they're ashamed to talk about it with someone who hasn't been through it.
Right.
But we talk. We go out. They call me. I call them. If we just need to talk, or we're feeling a need or whatever, or a want, because it should never be a need. It gets there, but it shouldn't be.
Right.
If we feel like we're about to do something stupid, we call each other. And that's just because I've been open about my story. I haven't been active in NA or anything like that, because I think those meetings are probably the pits of hell as far as I'm concerned. I don't ever want to use as much as when I'm sitting in a room full of people talking about how much they want to use.
Right.
So I don't do that. I've avoided that route completely. And I think that my life has gotten a lot better. I can manage my emotions now with very little help at all. Whereas for most of my life I couldn't. Once I got rid of all of the drugs, even the prescription ones that I was using as a crutch as an adult, I got better. I actually love my life now, whereas I wanted to die before. Kind of don't now, which is nice.
Right.
After anxiety, depression, drugs for 28 years, it only took 3 years of hell for me to get here. But I'm here, and I hope that I can help other people.
If you had to give a message to somebody maybe that's using under the table, that maybe they've been really good at hiding it and nobody's figured it out yet, or maybe they're still new to it, to where they're still chasing that high at the early stages, but they know they should get away from it. What would you suggest to them? What would be encouragement to them, or what would you have advice-wise for them?
Figure out why you're chasing that high. find out what's made you go that direction and deal with it before it gets too hard. Because it will get to an unmanageable point. And you can start now with coping skills and learning to deal with the emotions that you don't really want to, or you can do it later in a facility or prison, or you could die. I mean, simple truth is, if you're going to be a drug addict, eventually it's going to kill you. Everybody needs to know that unless you're dead, there's still hope. You can change it. You just have to want to, and you have to commit to it. I actually wrote this the last day that I ever used drugs, when I was leaving town. It's called Things I Can't Say and Don't Do. Things I didn't have the heart to tell you, like how my loneliness and depression caused my sobriety to fall through. How I look at you and wonder if just me will ever do. Will I ever be enough, or just stuck in this vicious cycle of abuse? But it's not you, it's me, and how I can't sit still or be alone, how the quiet forces me so far from home till I'm lost with no direction, looking for perfection in the junkie in me. Like I can't see how it hurts just to breathe as I push in a needle and pull out relief because I'm fading. Things I couldn't say out loud, like how I hate my life, I pray to die every time I cry, I'm lonely, and I need someone. But I can't run away hard enough, get away fast enough from relationships and all that real life stuff like sobriety. Such a foreign concept to me because the room started spinning and my loneliness is winning and I can't breathe without the taste of death between my tongue and teeth. I don't want to hurt my family, but damn it, why can't they see that I'm dying and I'm sick of crying, I'm a lost cause? That's when I scream, slam my fists into these concrete walls and start to bleed red, just like everyone else. But I can't be because there's no hope for me and I'm sinking. Like the Titanic's maiden voyage, I'm cursed, wish I'd never seen an iceberg, or the way it felt when it breached the walls and halls of my veins, my consciousness going insane, screaming from emotional pain that's self-inflicted. That's when the room shifted and I broke in half. My addiction starts to laugh like it knew I wasn't done, but I'm the only one that believes that lie, as I start to cry and sink to the ocean floor. I don't know if I can take anymore, but I have to try, 1 minute at a time, because days are too long and I'm just holding on by my fingertips, and I'm losing grip on reality. Colder than the North Atlantic, these chemicals cause my heart to panic and then freeze. Is this the one that's going to take me? Will I finally be free? And then the calm. The anger is gone from when they revived me and I think I get to be done. But just like every other time, I'm just high, not free to fly from this hell I live in. My body's just a cage. And then I feel the rage start to boil over again. And I can't swim in these Arctic waters. So I quit.